So we had a little disagreement about that. He's still trying to hold up his position, but he knows where his hay is. He's just assuming now I'm going to move it to him, and I'm not.
It's like I ordered Uber Eats. This is wrong. Yeah.
I think that a lot of folks can relate to that fun.
All right. So it is 9:01. So I think we'll give everyone like another minute, minute and a half to filter in. And Leah, congrats on the release of the second book. I need to order my copy.
Oh, thank you. It's coming April 1st.
Okay.
April, yep. Which feels like right around the corner. I mean, everybody here knows we're all starting seeds and the birds are chirping. We're hitting 70 degrees every now and then, plunging back into deep winter, but
Second
April
winter,
1st is
yeah.
coming. Yep.
Leah, I've got my advanced copy for the store. Where is the most helpful place for us to leave a review?
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Email me and I'll put it on the website. I'd
Perfect.
love to. Oh my gosh, thank you.
All right. Turn this off. Do not disturb. Awesome. Well, we're nerding out. Okay. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us this morning or this afternoon if you happen to be in Sweden. Today, we are going to be graced with some knowledge and ideas and positions from Angela Patterson. Angela is an environmentalist and market gardener based in Stockholm, Sweden. With a focus on sustainability and biodiversity, she works alongside her team of oxen to grow organic heirloom vegetables. So I'm going to hand the virtual floor over to Angela now, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Ruth. And thank you for welcoming me here today to speak about my experiences building a market garden with Oxen. I will jump right in. And my name, as you said, is Angela Patterson, and I sell vegetables at the Stockholm Farmers Market 12 weeks from the first weekend of August, to the end of October. And so in that 12 weeks, I make my year's worth of income. So one thinks of every week should cover 1 month of bills is the goal. And this is what it means to be a market garden, selling direct to customers, growing intensively on a small amount of land. I don't have acres and acres. I do have it's 2.5 hectares, which is 7 acres. Historically, I believe this is called a smallholder. And I began farming as a business in 2021, which is the season before my oxen were actually born. In this presentation, I'm a person of many words and many interests. So in this presentation, I'll try to narrow it down but speak on my experiences with transparency and speak of the lessons I've learned and the adjustments we've made as the oxen have grown in size and ability to work and as they take on a larger role in the farm. And although this audience here on Zoom are folks who already know a lot about animal traction, my target audience also includes the beginners and the dreamers and the people who might watch this video elsewhere. Because when I made the leap to turn my hobby into a business, I consumed as much literature and media and information as I could find. So I try to pack in a lot of details and maybe someone might find something useful here. Let's begin by where I'm located. I included a little map so you can orient where Sweden is. We're up in the north of Europe. 59 degrees north latitude. And if you look at the left is actually the growing zone in Sweden, but you'll find that red arrow is where I am, just south of Stockholm, about 40-minute drive. And we're USDA zone 6B. And so our frost-free growing season is about May 15th to October 8th. Something unique about our location is the sun, daylight hours. So on our longest day of the year, the sun actually comes up at 3:30 in the morning and sets at 10, after 10. And it never really gets dark. It just becomes like a blue color. It means from May to July, we have 18 hours of sunlight a day, but by September, we're down to 12 hours. In October, it's 10 hours. So nothing really grows so well in October. In that photo in the middle, that is my farm from the one corner all the way back. And I took it at around 9:30 or 10 at night. And the only reason it's getting dark is this rainstorm coming in. Otherwise, you see the sun is up and it's the blue sky. And it becomes very surreal that time of year. I would like to introduce you right away to my two oxen, Madhu and Chandra. They are 4-year-old Swedish Reds mixed with Swedish Lowland. And they're just the most common dairy breeds in Sweden. So if you equate it, it would be like Old Holstein and a Guernsey or milking Shorthorn. They're very tall and long-legged and friendly, eager to work. They came home with me when they were 2 months old. And although most people yoke their oxen as a team, I almost always work them singly for maneuverability and honestly for personal preference. My background is in environmental sciences, so the topics of sustainability in relation to draft animal use is deeply interesting to me. But I will pick one aspect, one of the many factors that went into choosing to work with oxen instead of tractors was the difference in waste. Manure becomes compost. It's a theme that will resurface throughout the whole presentation, that the very waste in an ox body is like black gold, just highly valuable input for growing. And they are low fossil fuel use. The oxen turn grass into energy to work. And I do put low with an asterisk at the end, because in winter they eat bales of hay silage that I purchased from the neighbor farm. And they do use a tractor to cut and bale. So we're not zero fossil fuel. We don't need to push this narrative of zero fossil fuel use, but it's very low. And my favorite, not a favorite, that's too strong. A poetic thought to me is that in the end of their life, their bodies will decompose and that's all there'll be left of them. Just the good soil that they made. And their equipment is also, leather also breaks down, wood, and then the metal, it is easily repaired, entirely recyclable. The implements we use are 100 years old. When they break, fix them. If not, melt it down and make something. We'll jump right into what is my model for the sort of farming I do, and it is actually no-till gardening. I reference here Elliot Coleman, Charles Dowding, and Daniel Mays as these books that I read the most to figure out what style of farming I was going to do. This means recognizing soil as a complex living ecosystem, building soil and limiting soil disturbance, and we don't actually plow over the soil. We don't compress the soil with heavy machines, and we don't leave the soil exposed to erosion. These are the no-till permanent beds we have. You see they're about 1 meter wide beds with 40-centimeter pathways. So you intensively plant with very tight spacing, leaving as little unproductive soil as possible. And the beds stay in the same place every year. And places where beds and paths, you get the picture. And so I wanted to put in what varieties I'm growing in these pictures in case someone was interested. I do Helios yellow bush beans, this Baltic red kale, and then Merrill head lettuce. And you see in the far photo there with the lettuce that this is the late planting of lettuce, the last ones that will be harvested in October, is that there's mesh on the right bed to cover the cabbages, and then left is straw covering where the leeks are growing. And then combining no-till gardening with oxen seems like an uncommon combination. When I compare the beds during the years before, when the oxen were too young to work this soil, and how they were last season, the harrowing has substantially improved the workability of the soil. And each farm is different, and for the conditions of our farm, with the heavy clay soil, it is a sustainable choice. No-till is against fast-moving steel and heavy compaction, and the harrow is doing the same work I do with hand tools. And the speed and the weight of Madhu here in the photo is just incomparable to a tractor, but it is much faster than if I'm doing it alone. See in the background of that photo, instead of plowing over the soil for weed control, we smother with tarps. So right now that the snow was melted away here in March, I will put out the tarps again, and they'll stay there until it's time to work the soil with Madhu. And we do it once in the spring. He pulls the spring tooth harrow over the beds. And it really helps break up all those balls that come. And in the right, you'll see not a great picture of our harrow, and what the soil looks like after Madhu has come through. We don't do big circular patterns like you would with acreage. It is an up and back, hard to see in the photo. Which we also cultivate paths together. And to manage weeds, it's Chandra cultivating the paths before planting and during the season. And you see my partner, I like to introduce him. Well, the first photo of him here is my partner, Utam, and he's my partner in life and farming and everything in between. Chandra, different animals have different personalities, and Chandra is the more steady, focused, and more careful than Madhu. So he's really easy to train to walk the narrow paths and don't risk taking out the plants that are on the beds. And you see that after photo of how it looks when he is finished. During the season, for the more resilient plants, I do also cultivate the paths with him. Really sensitive things like small carrots just coming up, no, because if he does have a misstep, there's not much saving those plants. Another important role of oxen in the no-till garden is compost and manure. On the left, we have a photo of actually one of my cows, Sunshine, and it's showing how we use the deep bed method in the winter time, which means, you have straw and the cows are there, and then in the morning you pick away the poops and take it away, but you don't take away all the straw. Instead, you fill more straw on top so it's nice and dry, and it grows and it grows. And by the end of the winter, you scoop it all out of the barn and you get this beautiful pile like the one in the middle. And it takes about 2 years. We flip the compost regularly in these long rows. And then 2 years later, we bring it out onto the beds. Usually, this year was the first year we actually used the oxen to bring it all down. Let me look at my notes here. This is an economic advantage for my farm because I don't have to buy in the compost, and I can control the composition of what is in the compost. Last year in Sweden, people buying compost from one of the major farm stores, like a Tractor Supply in the US, but here it's called Grangården. They were buying packaged compost, and there was some plant residue or chemical residue, and it actually stunted the growth of all tomato plants. And that's a risk I don't have to take because I know what food passed through the animal and into the compost pile. Talking about growing for the Stockholm market, what I grow actually has a lot of thought behind it. Does the variety do well under our microclimate and soil? How much time or physical effort is required of me to grow it? Will the people eat it? And also, will they buy it? And this also includes what are the other farms selling at the same market? And so here you see the list of what I grow. Not everything, but it's the most important. And I've converted the prices into US dollars. I write at the end of my factors their compatibility with oxen. And one example is that transplanting out plants into beds that are prepped by the oxen is an advantage compared to growing with seed that has to start early, like palsternack in Swedish. And I can't think of the word in English right now. There's a root vegetable that has to grow all season long in a bed, and it just wouldn't time with using the oxen in the beds. Or we can grow vegetables whose seeds are direct sown in June, so after the oxen have been through. Pumpkins, I think, are the most practical for an ox-centered farm because we bring the manure down, which makes the rows right across where we'll do the pumpkins, and it builds soil. It's very healthy for the soil and movable with the oxen. Then the pathways, though, Chandra won't cultivate them because soon they'll have vines growing across. So you just cover it with this thick straw. And pretty much you leave it, you water it and let it go. And then in the fall, you can collect the pumpkins. And this year, I hope to do it with the oxen with his cart and make it like a full circle moment. But you'll see I've written they thrive with high compost. They start inside and come out in June. They're low maintenance. And there's a really high demand in our area for unique varieties, particularly Halloween pumpkins. Halloween is new to Sweden. And the first year I grow big, beautiful ones you'd make a jack-o'-lantern with, and no one wanted to carry that home for the market. So now I go into ones that only weigh a couple pounds like that. That is the right amount of Halloween for my area. Tomatoes, cucumbers, and chilies. They are really high value and also require high amounts of manure. A lot of text on this, but the basic is that I'm trying to match up the factors of demand with what I grow. And the heirloom varieties of tomato, they're non-uniform, but the flavor is so much better than the ones shipped during the winter time from greenhouses in Spain all the way up to Sweden that just kind of taste like water. They're probably hydroponically grown. And same with the cucumbers. Last season, I had to convince people cucumbers are a staple here in Sweden. They have it like every morning on a little toast for breakfast, but you can buy it cheaply at the store. Why would they buy something so expensive from me? So last year, I actually gave cucumber samples, with little toothpicks in it, and people would try and say, oh, okay, there is a difference in homegrown cucumber versus store. And I got like a really good demand going. I grow unagi, which are these long, very slender ones that are vine, and also these creeping ones that are outside the greenhouse that are like pickling variety. Chilies, I sell by the whole plant, and they grow in 5-liter pots, which is the 1.3 gallons I've written here, and they grow in pots on trays on the greenhouse floor. And they're half soil and half compost. And the only way to make this profitable is that I have this almost unlimited supply of compost that I can just stuff into the pots. So to grow these warmth-loving things, I do have, this is greenhouse number 1. We built in 2022, and I call it like a human scale of gardening. It's 20 feet by 40 feet. There's 4 rows inside, and we built it with just treated lumber, and we bought kind of greenhouse plastic direct from a wholesaler. So it cost about $3,000, and we wanted it to be an input that was not a beautiful stone glass greenhouse. We wanted something that is temporary enough that we could use it for a few years, and if it didn't work out for us, it wouldn't break the bank by making something new. I include this middle photo here you see of when we were building the greenhouse. So you can kind of see how we did it, but I thought it was a good way to show the layout of the garden of how we tarped the grass in the beginning. And we planned the beds to go the short way, so the width of the garden, left to right. And the greenhouse was well positioned then, and it was before the use of oxen. The problem with using full-grown oxen is that we only harrow for 20 meters, 65 feet, before you have to turn around and go back the other way. And then the flow is disturbed. So now for 2026, we are waiting for the ground to thaw, and we are going to choose to flip the garden. Even though they're permanent beds, we'll change them one time and make them permanent again to go the long way. And that will give the boys more than 50 meters, 164 feet before we have to worry about turning and going back around. Let's see. The greenhouse, I would like to know, is then in the way of those rows on the right-hand side. So the rows can't come all the way to the front door there, but we have some ideas about what we will do to make sure that it's still a productive space and they can turn around there. This leads to greenhouse 2, a much bigger building. It's similarly wide, 7 meters by 24 meters, so 80 feet long. And we made sure to put in very large doors so the oxen can come through. The whole bottom half, I don't know if you can see, like a 1/3 bottom. You see there's a human-sized door open, but all of that disappears and comes away. So one could go with a single oxen there. to deliver compost and cultivate paths, but I put the asterisk because when there's not tomatoes growing inside, it would be too tight of a squeeze and too risky. This greenhouse accommodates 240 tomato plants, and then the 400 chilies in pots, and then we plant plants under at the feet of the tomatoes too. And it cost very similarly, $4,300 I would estimate to build that, and Utam and I did it ourselves, and we borrowed a neighbor's like bucket scoop tractor, and so I would hold him up in the tractor and he would do his screwing, and I should have included some photos of that. Let's see. The ways we work with the oxen is the errand cart. It is a small two-wheeled cart, and you think, oh, it's just 1 by 1.5 meters. It's not very big, but if it takes at least 6 wheelbarrows, it is worth my time because I'm not carrying the weight anymore. I'm just walking alongside him as he moves around. I think that although working the soil is the most important and flashy job that the oxen do, this is the most common. This is the daily life, and in the end, maybe adds up to more hours of help for me. In the winter, we do a lot of chores together. The market season is short, but the farm runs year round. And I haven't mentioned it, I think, but we have 2 dairy cows as well. And I love working in the winter with the oxen. They're eager to get out of the barn, and I have more time to spend with them. And it's just deeply satisfying. I'm sure some of you can relate. On the left, we have this very simple homemade V plow that we made to just go up and down the driveway in front of our barn. And on the right, you see I collect firewood. I wouldn't say I'm logging with them. I'm collecting firewood. They're small trees broken off in the storms. But if you collect enough small trees and bundle them together, it's like a big log, isn't it? But it is less work on my own body because you think when you're out there working with them, you're working too. And so for the dreamers and the hopers of having oxen one day, you don't have to be an extremely burly, strong person. You can collect small trees and bundle them together, and it's still worth it. Yokes in Sweden has been a substantial hurdle here, and there's no more ox culture. It died out with the tractor in the 1950s. So I meet people who are like, "Oh, my grandparents had oxen," and then some older folks say, "Oh, my parents had oxen." But there's no one. There's really no one left. I know of 2 other farms in all of Sweden so far. What I want to point out with this is right in the center, you see this bow yoke, this single yoke, and that is something that Utam and I made together for Madu. Above it is a classic Swedish yoke, and it actually ties to the horns. And my boys don't have horns, so even though we were given that one, there's nothing we can do with it. And then the photos left and right, you'll see on the left someone using that style. And those are what the Swedish red oxen look like if you're not mixing in the lowland. And on the right, you see another form, which is it just looks like a plank tied to their horns. And I noticed in the books, they always tie their heads facing inward. Unique. Or they used these harnesses that look a lot like the 3-pad collar you'll see in the photo down in the center. And that is where, with that inspiration, and actually inspiration from Barbara Korsen, who discussed using Scandinavian horse collars and flipping them upside down and fixing them, you can use them for oxen. So that is what we do, and that's what I use with Chandra. And it has helped because even though we made that nice looking single yoke, it lasted so short of time. And this is not really our strength as carpenters to build such yokes. So we, with this horse collar harness system, it has lasted much longer. It's been like 1.5 years, and you can adjust it more. Exchange of labor is a very important point that I speak when I talk about using oxen on the farm, because Madhu and Chandra, they work occasionally, and when they do, they move heavy things. It's so helpful, and they transport light but voluminous things, and I work with them. But in exchange, I work daily to care for their bodies and to train them, interact with them, maintain a relationship. And it is work, but I am exchanging the heavy labor for the daily labor. So for anyone who wants to have a market garden, the decision to use animal traction is based on one's own internal values. Do I prefer this trade and labor? Will working with Oxen enrich my life in other ways that make it a better choice than doing everything by hand or using a tractor? In the bottom left, Chandra was 2 months old, and I started training him using clicker training like you do with dogs or horses. And it's been a long time. It's been 4 years. This is us in the winter now plowing, and you think, well, that is 4 years of kind of emotional work or training I've done with him over that time. And then the right is Madhu getting his hooves done. That is a consideration. Tractors need tune-ups, oxen also need to be cared for. And so for me, the labor required to maintain the oxen was actually already decided, and it was my role separate from the market garden. And perhaps unique, but I bought Madhu and Chandra to rescue them from conventional dairy and to love them as my companions. And you see, when they came home at 2 months old, and then us last summer. In this mutual beneficial relationship, we work as a team. Some of the chores directly benefit them, like the cart errands. We're going to get grains that they will then eat, or we're cleaning out their moldy food so they can have fresh. And some benefit me, collecting the firewood, cultivating the garden. But they get food from this garden during the market season. They get all the scraps, they get all the uglies, the carrot tops. They get a huge bag of food every Saturday night after the market. And they contribute to the earning of money for Utham and I. And in reality, without money, we cannot maintain the farm and the animals. So indirectly, it helps them. But the plan is they will work during their young and healthy years, but then they will retire in peace and comfort and sanctuary. The work we do is good for all of our bodies and mental health. It gives us exercise, breaks up the tedium of winter, and a lot of mutual affection. This photo to the right is one of my favorites because we're collecting those logs that I show, the small trees that I showed a previous photo of. And I was going to film it I'm making like a film montage of what we do. And the amount of time I spend cuddling him and petting him, and it's a really experience together. I feel good petting him, and he enjoys it too. Let's see. And when we talk about jobs on the farm, there is really only one mandatory job for my oxen, is that they must be friendly and handleable and gentle companions. They must walk on a halter wherever I want to bring them. And perhaps that sounds cute, almost like a soft joke, but to us it's deeply serious because they are the face of our farm. When I show up to the market, I discuss my work with them. And we have visitors, and this past year we had woofers who, honestly, they don't come for me, they come for them. And so they must be kind and social with the neighbors who stop us on the street when we're walking our cart down the road and want to discuss how their grandparents had oxen. They must stand there and wait patiently. That is their real job in our family. And I would like to conclude with this banner. This is what I bring to the market, and it just showcases, I think, the highlights of the farm and featuring Madhu Chandra there. And lucky today that Leah, the artist, is actually with us in the chat, and she designed that beautiful piece. So that concludes my presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions? I have some questions, but I'll, see if anybody in the audience wants to reach out now. Okay, I'll go first. So I think it's like really interesting to see or to hear about these practices, and it seems like you do this really careful listening in all parts of your farming work, including like listening to your customer base, right? Like, what are people going to grow? Listening to the personalities of Chandra and Madhu and, saying, okay, you are a better fit for this job, or you are going to enjoy this work more. Um, and I think that's really interesting in conjunction with like your position as an environmentalist. So I would just like love to hear you talk a little bit more about that.
What a compliment, Ruth. Thank you for saying that. That's a really high compliment. I do try to put a lot of intention into everything I do. I'm definitely not careless and maybe even too careful. But how to answer the question? Let's see. I think that from an environmental perspective, we know that systems are really all connected to one another. Everything has a unique part to it, but in the end, it creates a whole. And so, if I tune in to my part in this bigger picture, it's my little piece of land that I feel is my role to steward as best I can. And these are my two oxen, that is my role to do the best I can with them. That if everyone kind of pulled on their little piece and made it better, I think environmentally, socially, maybe even economically, it would be a benefit to our community.
Thank you. And then we have a question from Brad in the chat. So he asks, you mentioned grain. How much grain do you feed your oxen? Do you feed grain year round or only when you are working them?
Great question. The grain we mostly get for the two dairy cows, they get about, it depends on the season, but the dairy cows get about 1.5 liters in the morning and 1.5 liters at night. But the oxen, they get a handful. It's like less than half liter, and they just get it as a thank you for coming in. They graze year round. Thank you for coming in. We treat them with the cow herd, and so because the cows are getting grains, they get this little handful. And as calves, I told you I was doing clicker training with them, and so one way to teach them new skills is with a bit of grain. Chandra is very logical. He doesn't like doing the same task over and over again. And you can't bribe him. He will do real work for you, but not just training. But Madhu, he will do anything for a handful of grain, which is a good tool to have in the back pocket. When we're doing very difficult work, I will keep, a handful of grain in the pocket. And one more thought I would say is I think that my oxen run a risk of becoming overweight instead of underweight. So I really try to limit the amount of grain and really high quality forage that they're getting and save that for the cows instead.
Yeah, they they become obese very easily, it turns out. Okay, we have another question from Farm Team. Can you speak more about the setup with the horse collar? I struggle to find gear due to the size of my pair as well.
Certainly. Let's go. Let's go
and
back.
it's from Felipe at Retreat Farm. Thank you, Felipe.
Let's go back. Let's see. So you see the bottom right corner is Chandra there. I hope that's a clear enough photo. Here in Sweden, everyone uses this style of collar for their horses, but where it's tied beneath his neck is actually what goes on the top of a horse. And Barbara Corson was teaching me that where ox pulls is less in the chest, and higher up and above the shoulder, so they don't get stuck in their movement. So if there's I'm gonna find another photo. Excuse me for better. Okay. If you look that right, you see there's like a belly band kind of going around from his back all the way around his belly, and there's actually a metal ring there that connects a very thick leather strap to the collar. And so in order to flip the collar around, what we had to do was we had to cut that metal ring and take the leather out and rearrange and then weld it back together. And this is so that the part that goes above the back stays on the back. Because if we just flip the whole thing, then that back piece would be under the belly. I don't know where Felipe is located, but you're really welcome to contact me. And if the horse collars here are very inexpensive or relatively inexpensive, maybe I can figure a way to get you one and show you how we converted it.
And Angela, you correct me if I'm wrong, you worked at, or maybe you are still working at a conventional dairy, correct? I would love to just hear a little bit about how your dairy cows fit into your farm operation, and then maybe how some of the experiences in your dairyman career have influenced the decisions that you make on your farm with your animals.
Mm. I work at two different conventional dairies in the area part-time, mostly in the winter and the off season. That's where I work. And it has given me an invaluable, a wonderful experience of getting to meet so many personality types that cattle can come in. And between the two farms, it's 120 at one, about the same. So it's like 240 dairy cows to interact with, and then their calves. And you can see what personalities are much more handleable, and how it would affect if this was a working animal, the anxiety level, or they can be too forward and too pushy. You can't make them do anything until they choose to, and that would be also a pain. But I think I have gotten a good eye for figuring out when I see a bull calf born. By the time they're a few weeks old, I think, okay, this would make a good animal for somebody to work with. They are inclined to people. They are not too spookable, and it works with cows also. Choosing who would be a home dairy cow. That is what I like to do at work. Is I actually work my hours there. Is they pay me in bales of silage, and let me pay off debts by buying these oxen and buying my own cows. And not every conventional dairy cow would make a good family cow, and I would say half wouldn't. But I have learned also the resiliency of cattle in a conventional setting where they don't have names, they're not looked after like all of our animals are, and they do get sick. But it's a question of money, like how much is that animal worth when it's sold by the kilo versus making it well again by the vet. So a lot of time they leave them kind of to the highest extent they can, and a lot of cows just somehow pull through in the end. And in my 5 years of working conventional dairy, unfortunately, I've seen more than 230 cows and bull calves. They move on to the slaughter facility, and how many actually were doing quite poorly. They were sick, but they pulled through and became healthy enough and went on to the slaughter facility. Then was a benefit to the farmer. To me, it doesn't align with my values, but I learned a lot of lessons from that. That was a long-winded answer.
No, that's great. Thank you. And I think that willingness to sit with other practices is so important when you're farming with draft animals, because there's 10 different ways, right, that one could go out and cultivate some beds. And there is perhaps something to take and something to leave from each of those practices. So I really appreciate that you are sort of like holding these two ways of moving through the world alongside animals in your work. We have a question from Tim Harrigan, and he asks, do you keep your oxen on pasture during the growing season? If so, how do you limit their feed?
We do an intensive rotation where we cut our pasture, which is just 2 hectares of pasture, into 12 different um, paddocks. And in the nighttime, we have night pastures, we call it, that are mostly forest, scrub, bushes, and things. So they don't really eat so much at night. They have enough that they can nibble on, but only during the days are they actually eating grass. And I would also mention that my oxen have just become 4 years old, so their metabolism is still high. We might have to adapt this as they get older.
Yeah, it is amazing how quickly they grow up, and then they get big, and then you think they're done growing, and then they get bigger. Um, okay, we have another question from Brad Spalding, and he asks, do you plan to start new bull calves in the future to use as oxen? And if so, when will you begin this process?
Great question. Still many years out from that, I believe, because I do have friends that have a pair of oxen that are 13 and 15, and they're still going strong. And so as the boys are 4, I don't think I would think to start another pair for quite some years. Our dairy cows have been 4 years since the dairy cows we have are not the mothers of these boys, but the age it matches up. The last time they had their calf was 4 years ago. And so we also debate, are we going to have more calves and increase our milk production because we're doing the long lactation? And another idea we threw around is maybe when the cows dry off and we are ready for another pair of bull calves, if we bought them young enough, would that stimulate milk production again in the dairy cows? Because we have friends who've tried that out. Oh, but I will say, if I get bull calves again, in all truth, I will not get these same dairy breeds again. They are overpowered for my small farm. They are the monster truck. Big boys should be pulling in competitions. And so I would do a more native breed here, these sort of mountain cows breeds of cows that are much smaller and more compact.
And do you have I'm always just interested in breeds. Is there a certain breed that this mountain cow is?
They're called fjällkor. Fjäll meaning the mountains, and there's also Vänerku, and these are the ones that are most endemic to the Sweden area. And we have friends with them, but they're small and rugged, and they're supposed to live on very small amount of forage. Like they actually eat like lichen and things more like a reindeer, and because of that, they get very fat on grass pastures. So there is a downside. But I think the sort of work we're doing, it would be the right size.
And then Tim asked a follow-up question of how much do your animals weigh?
Good question. When the vet was here last, we used this tape around the stomach, the chest, to do the estimate, and they are over 900 kilo each then, and that was last summertime. So you multiply by 2.2 to get to pounds.
Yeah, your boys are not far off from the same weight as mine, but yours look like they're in much better shape. Marcus Wintrich asked, do you plan on working the cows someday?
Great question. Thank you for that. I hope to. I think that would be a great addition to their role in the farm. Their milk goes down. They're not even giving that much milk right now that it's an energy problem. But I would like to work the cows singly. What a fun idea. If I can ask, have you been working cows instead of oxen?
I just do it by voice. I am from Germany and I have 3 cows of my own, and we have here a great tradition of working with cows. So yeah, that's why when I got the idea, because you have to do cows, and so I just don't you could use them in the garden as well.
Yeah, that's a great. I would say one disadvantage of the cows is that these specific cows came to us when they were already quite old. One was almost 4 and the other was 5. So they missed, I think, that crucial period as calves where they really get used to humans and language. And I noticed, even though they've been with us quite a few years now, the difference in their vocabulary is that it's very, very strong. So I think it would take some time more to train them up, but what a fun idea. That would be a great challenge.
And then Cameron Genter asks, it seems like in your no-till system that you don't really need to cultivate, and do you just add compost every year and plant directly into it? And the spring tooth is just to give it a little scratch and loosening in the spring.
Yeah, that's a good Yeah, the stretch in spring is really needed because of the compaction of the snow and also the watering from the prior season. It can get sort of cracked, kind of like how a desert looks, and it just, yeah, it fluffs it a bit. But you're right. There's not, besides kind of weeds in the paths, you don't need to cultivate. We haven't cultivated the beds. We just do hand weeding.
Yeah, I think when I think of no-till, I often am thinking of like the trade-off of, well, no-till and one maybe has to do like higher chemical inputs in that type of system, but it seems like you found a sweet spot where you're able to really pursue that practice in a holistic manner. So I just want to, I really appreciate you sharing about that, and it definitely seems like it's like don't overcomplicate it type of situation, like, and yeah, that's really inspiring to see.
Another advantage of the harrowing on the beds is when we tarp it like this to kill the weeds and it will stay there for 2 months, is these small like shrews and mice and things actually burrow under there because it's like rich and delicious. And so they make a lot of holes and homes. And so the harrow actually helps destroy their houses. And it's not fast moving tractor that you see the mice run away when mud is coming, but it has really helped actually with the pressure of these sork, they're called, because I would transplant out these little heads of lettuce, and a sork would take them overnight sometimes. So this was the warning when I started doing no-till. The farmers around me, they're like, "Oh, but what are you going to do about the sork?" And before the oxen were doing the harrowing, I just noticed a big contrast now in this mouse pressure.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it seems like you are like there's other things for them to eat, right? That they can run a few meters in the other direction and they can make their new
Exactly.
home there. Yeah, it's really great. Any other questions, thoughts, observations? Anybody feel free to unmute yourself and ask Angela while we've got her here.
Angela, you said earlier the age that you started your training, and I was fascinated by the idea of clicker training. It just hadn't occurred to me. What was the age that you started your training with your calves again?
Official training, I would say, is when they came home at 2 months. But I met Chandra because of where I was working. He was born there at 2 days old. I would say our real training began, our interaction and our relationship began there. And then before they became 2 months, before they became home, I was already putting halters on them and got them this idea that if they touch the ball, then you get a click and then you get the scratch. And they were already making that connection, I mean, about a month old. And they could walk very peacefully and calmly on the leash, I would say, just several weeks after arrival home, so when they're 3 or 4 months old. And if I may say one more thing about the clicker training that I believe is an advantage today, they're big. People warn you that, oh, they'll just be looking for grains and treats all the time. It's not the case. But the click is a surefire way to tell them that what you have just done is exactly what I was asking for. That was correct. And you see, when we're trying something new or it's a difficult situation, if you do that just with the mouth, they'll be like, okay, all right, that's what we're doing now. And it's an easy way to say yes, because there's so many ways to say no, right? You can hit them, yeah, like no is easy, but yes can be a bit more nuanced.
And then we have another question in the chat, and then Tim Harrigan has his hand raised as well. But Marcus asked, how do you irrigate the garden?
Oh, great. Thank you for that question. I should have included a slide. We have this farmland that we bought had drainage ditches dug in the 70s. It was probably a wetlands long ago, and just kind of swampy fields. But there's these drainage ditches that are just on the right side. You see where Itam is cultivating? There's like a fence line. Just a couple meters more is a long ditch. And so we multi-purpose. In order for the cows to cross that ditch, we made some bridges with this like culverts. And so we put it at quite a high level. So there's always at least a meter and a half of water in that ditch. And at the beginning, where the water drains into our land, we dug a big pond. And because of the clay soil, we didn't need to do anything to the bottom. We just dug until there was, and we borrowed a tractor to do this, until it became like a giant clay pot. So between the pond, and then we have a lower pond, and then this long ditch, we just have a very inexpensive pump that we pump up water whenever we need to irrigate with the hose. And some of the hoses, we just extend garden hose that we have poked holes in, so it does like a drip irrigation, very homemade style. And sometimes we do a sprinkler, but that is the most wasteful in water.
And Tim.
Yes. Yeah, I'm wondering how essential are the oxen to your farming operation? And I guess by that, I mean, how key is just the enjoyment that you get from working with them? And if you could not use oxen in the future, how would that change your farming operation or your practices?
Thank you for that question. Because we began the farm before the oxen, it was on this human scale. And so we could do it without the oxen and do it all by hand again. But it's one of those situations where now that the oxen are helping, one sees the contrast in time and effort and strength. So I wouldn't want to go back to life without the oxen. And now as they get bigger, we can expand more. Slowly and surely we can increase, which will increase our profits. And there was the last part that I have forgot. Oh, the enjoyment. Yeah, that's the payoff, right? I think that is the one that I cling to every day, is that I gain something non-material from this work we're doing together.
Yeah, I think that that's the point, right? Is that we all enjoy our job and we get something out of it. Leah asked, how long have you been on your farm?
We bought we have a house on the same road, just a normal little cabin. And then the big farmer who owns like 350 acres sold off this piece because it wasn't big enough for him to do work with tractor on it. And that was in 2020. So we bought this off him, and there was nothing on it. No barn, no roads, no structure, but that gave us the freedom to kind of choose and pick our placement of where the garden would be. So yeah, this will be, if we started farming in 2021, we bought it 2020. Yeah, this will be year 6 of being in this place.
I don't think I realized that you had built out all of the infrastructure on your farm as well. And so when you arrived, you did not have the oxen, correct? So yeah, so what of course a huge like job to do is like, oh, we also have to build a barn and we also have to do this. But can you talk a little bit about some of the benefits of being able to design and build and adapt based around the animals that you're living with?
Certainly. Let's take this photo in the center of one corner. Because there was nothing there, we took our time to figure out where we wanted to place everything, the greenhouses, for maximum sunshine. So when we bought it in like the middle of the season, we waited, all the way through autumn, and we didn't start building until after we saw what it looked like in spring. And so that specific corner where you see the 2 greenhouses is the sunniest. It gets the first sun of the day, and it holds on to the most sun in the evening. Besides, there's a patch all the way to the far right which is where our barn is. It's behind Madhu. It's hard to see there. You just see the top of the roof, and that gets the last evening light. And so we placed them with sun in mind. We also were able to build that barn. We didn't have to adapt a barn that someone else had built for another reason, like a chicken barn or something, and we could make it exactly in the layout we wanted. And it is with my like great thankfulness that my partner Utam is very handy and loves carpentry and designing, and he milled all the wood for our structures besides the pressure treated stuff for the greenhouse that we did buy. But for the barn, which I'm sorry I don't have a photo of, he milled that all in an old style sawmill. And isn't that incredible?
That's extremely impressive. I like him already. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, my boys live in an old pig barn and it works, but I do like think about if I had the opportunity to redesign things, what I would do. So I think that's really interesting to hear about yeah, that opportunity that you've taken. Any other thoughts, questions, comments?
As we conclude here, Ruth, I was wondering if you'd be so kind as to if you stop sharing the screen for me, because this whole time I've been speaking blind into these photos and I haven't seen the faces of everyone who's
Yeah.
here.
Yeah,
So,
let me stop participants sharing. Okay. Oh, and we do have another question. Brad asks, is the market garden your sole source of income? You mentioned that you milk for commercial dairies as sort of a trade of labor for inputs like hay.
yeah, it is it's my income for the year. And Utam has a job outside the home, and we live very simply. And that's the truth of it. I don't know, the average person wouldn't, I think, enjoy such a salary, but we're making do and growing each year. As this is my third year coming into this specific market at Stockholm, there's a long waiting list to get in, and I've seen an immediate jump up in my sales. I leave the market with an empty table pretty much every market. So now it's just the push to myself. The more I can produce, the more I'll come home with in the end. And I think I can only speak for our region, but there is space for more farmers like me in the same even in the same county. We're outside the major head city of Stockholm. So
I have a quick question about getting to build your own barn and design it that way. Um, when you were in that process, I know that, you'd moved there, Oxen came a little later. Is there anything that you did in your design specifically or now do in your design for the functionality of oxen versus dairy cows? Do you have, a hitching area or an equipment area, or how that utility works in that space?
great question. When we built it, thought more of dairy cows, truthfully, and the oxen's needs didn't come till later. So we have a structure next to the barn, just in their trees there. We call it a tractor garage. Essentially, it's a three-walled structure, much simpler. And in that, we keep all of our oxen equipment and also their hitching post. We have like a small temporary one outside as well, but we've just grown accustomed. We spend a lot of time at the hitching post, grooming and doing other things and fitting our, like when we're learning how to adjust our harnessing. So we have like an indoor hitching post. And like I said, we treat the oxen as a part of our herd. So during milking time, all four come to their stanchion, and we milk the cows on either side. The boys stand in the middle as though they were a pair, and the girls on the outside. And we milk by hand, and we actually sit between cow and oxen. And it was cute when they were small. And now that they're huge, it was one of the best choices I ever made, because I can sit almost underneath the oxen and feel safe, because it's always been that way. Like the milk pail is going, everything. It keeps them tamer and safer, I think. Long way.
I imagine that that keeps you warmer in the winter too.
It does. But in the summer, you get more tails to the
Yeah.
face. So. And another thought came to me is actually the height of our barn. We made sure to make our doors as just massive, and the internal space we measured. I don't know. We thought of when the oxen are climbing or roughhousing, we don't want them to hit their heads. So it's a big like cathedral inside in there.
Is your sweater a like Holstein pattern sweater?
Have a quick kiss. I'm shutting down. You can we stopped sharing the screen, right? So you're not looking at yourself again? Or
Correct.
how is it? Okay.
Yeah, no,
All right.
yeah.
I didn't know the whole time.
Yeah.
I've still been just talking.
Well, it looks like you know, you've got a Holstein pattern on your sweater, and I just want to say I really love it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other thoughts, questions? Angela, if people want to reach out to you, how would they go about doing that to contact you?
You're welcome. I actually most active on Instagram, but I know some people are very smart and don't get caught up in the social media. So you can also email me. That works, and I can provide that email here. It's a.marypatterson@gmail.com. And those who are around in Europe or want to have a chat, I'm happy to give my number. We can WhatsApp with each other.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Really, really appreciated hearing about all your practices, and so nice to be able to see you again. And yeah, any
Thank you.
other last thoughts, questions before we log off?
I just want to say one more thing that Angela, thank you so much. You really are doing it. You're doing it. It's just it's an inspiration, and I'm so thankful that this was recorded so that it can go on to inspire other people.
Thank you, Leah. Really appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We are very, very appreciative of your time. Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. And I hope you all have a great day. Go get your animals out. All right.
Okay,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to stop.